stream. Next up, we have Tamara Wilder back. And this is a really, really cool demonstration. She is from Paleotechnics, and she will be extracting strong and silky bast fibers from dog bane stalks, twisting that into fiber cordage, using a long rolling method, splicing more fiber to create a long string and using that string to make knotted net. And I did see this yesterday. I'm going to bring Tamara in here, and it's really kind of what I learned, kind of essential, like ancient knowledge of how we as humans were on this earth for so long, and skills we kind of have, and not in all cases lost, but certainly in Western culture lost. So it's really cool to see this. Welcome, Tamara.
Hi, it's wonderful to be back again. And thanks so much to Kemi. That was a wonderful presentation. I enjoyed that thoroughly. It's great to be back. And I want to start, I guess, by introducing myself again for anybody that didn't meet me yesterday. My name is Tamara Wilder, and my company is called Paleotechnics. And anything that I'm doing and more information can be found on my website, which is paleotechnics.com. And it just basically means ancient arts and technologies is what that sort of word means. Paleo is ancient, and technics is arts and technologies combined. Because they're, technology for the majority of our existence as humans has been a very artistic expression. It's really only in modern times that technology has become sort of more fun, more modular, or whatever you want to call it, and less artistically based. Because we've been using technology as humans for a million plus years. And the reason that we are technologically dependent creatures is that we are not born with what we need on our bodies in order to survive. And so instead, we're born with hands, which can change and manipulate our world, and a brain that has developed to be able to tell our hands what to do. And with those two tools that we're born with, we can then create and make anything that we need. The rest of the animals that live on the earth, they may use some forms of minor technology or from small technology or basic technology, but they don't depend on technology for every day of their lives because they're born with the tools they need on their bodies. They have claws, they have fur, they have sharp teeth, they have the ability to hunt. They don't need to make as many tools in order to survive. And so that's what the ancient technologies are all about, are the core hunter-gatherer living skills that are the pandemic universal human skills that our ancestors have used for, like I said, 1 million plus years in order to become the modern humans that we are right now. And the basic core technologies, the oldest ones, is being able to make stone tools, which that's around my neck. This is a flaked stone. So this is a stone that I can use as a tool. And so being able to make stone tools goes back over 1 million years. And then the other really important skills are to be able to make fire by rubbing sticks together in any way. The oldest way was rubbing sticks together. And then the next most important thing is to be able to have fiber in order to bind things together. And so that's what I'm going to show today. And the reason at Country Fair, this is my business. This is what I do all the time, not just at Country Fair. But at Country Fair, I'm part of a place in the fair that some of you may or may not know. It's in the Upper River Loop called Archaeology Park. And we are there as Archaeology Park. We were started, I think it was over 30 years ago now. We were started by a longtime founder of the fair, John Stamp, who has passed away. And he was an amateur archaeologist among several other amateur archaeologists, and they made some discoveries over 30 years ago that have proven to be that the fair site is one of the oldest archaeological sites in Oregon. And it's a floodplain, so it wasn't a permanent dwelling, but it was a seasonally used area for a really, really, really long time. Most recently by the Kalapuya tribe native people that have called that home the most recently. So in order to, once they've realized that this was a really important site, John Stamp was part of organizing this Archaeology Park booth. And I'm one of the demonstrators among a group of people. And we all met at a skills gathering. I actually realized that the first time I went to a skills gathering was the same one that John Stamp was recruiting the members of our demonstration crew for Archaeology Park at over 30 years ago. And we have been doing that for a really long time. And that's what I'm going to share with you today is one of the skills that I demonstrate at the park. Other skills that get demonstrated at the in-person fair, flint knapping, fire making, tanning hides. There's a whole bunch of things, basketry techniques, and you can do workshops and that kind of stuff too. But another big part of what the archaeology park does is there's an archaeological crew, and they actually are tasked with protecting the site of the fair from any damage done to that archaeological site, because there's a lot of stuff under the soil that we don't want to be just haphazardly digging. So anytime a new booth has to put a post in or anything, the archaeology crew is there to make sure that nothing is getting damaged. And if anything does get found, it gets marked and put on a map so that we know that that part is important and people shouldn't be digging there anymore. So, you know, there's a lot of work that they do throughout the entire year in order to help protect this. And then as the fair also, there's a really good booth if anybody wants to find out more about the history of Archaeology Park and the history of the place. Is there's a whole display about the Kalapuya people and the people that have lived there before us and the archaeological finds that were found. So next year when we're back, please come visit us at Archaeology Park. But for what I'm going to do right now is show you how I get the fiber or the string out of these sticks that are called dogbane. The Latin name is Apocynum cannabinum. There's a ton of fiber-bearing plants all over the world, and in every region, people have found the ones that are the ones that they can use. And there's some that are everywhere. So like nettles is one that's everywhere. You can make string out of the sticks of nettles in the same way. And another one is milkweed. Its close relative is this dogbane, and this is really only from North America, which makes it a really special plant. The ones that have been domesticated all around the world that people are more familiar with are hemp. So true hemp, cannabis hemp, has a fiber in it. That's why we can make hemp clothing and everything we do, but it comes from the same place as the dogbane. And the reason that dogbane is called Indian hemp is because when the people were coming over from Europe, they were all using true hemp, cannabis hemp, to make everything, that all their ropes, and they were using it like crazy. And so they met the native tribes on the East Coast who were using dogbane, and they realized that it's just as good as hemp. So they called it Indian hemp. And it is, I find it really awesome that we have a native local fiber that's only from North America that is as good as the two domesticated fibers that have been spread all over the world. And this one just grows wild. You just find it when you know where the patches are, you just find patches of it. They've been maintained for thousands of years by native people and by the indigenous peoples of North America, but the patches right now are just wild growing. So you just go and find them. The other one that's domesticated is flax, and that comes from the similar part of the stick, although the sticks are a lot smaller. So the stick is the closest to true hemp in its size, and the fiber is coming from the inner bark of the stick. And so the first thing I need to do is take off that outer bark. It's a hollow, pithy stick. In order to get the fiber out, I need to take off the outer bark. Otherwise, it glues the fibers together and doesn't allow them to extract. So I'm going to put, I learned this yesterday, I'm going to put a piece of paper over my and just like this. See, not, it's maybe slightly angled, but not cutting. And I come in and I scrape just that outer layer off of the stick. And I'm rolling the stick and just taking off a tiny little bit of powder. Really not very much at all, but I'm systematically just scraping the entire, around the entire stick until I can see that there's just a little layer that's been taken off. Ideally, I'm doing it once over. And this is the amount of powder I was taking off. It really is hardly anything. It's just that outer layer. And I could not do this step, and then I'm going to turn it around and go up the stick more. I could not do this step, and I'd have to clean and buff the fiber a lot afterwards. And I find this more efficient to scrape it first, because if I just take the outer bark and the inner bark off together, I tend to lose more fibers trying to clean off the outer bark. So that's my second zone. And I just am going to have to do that up the stick in the next joint, and the next joint, and there's little leaf nodes. So I scrape between the leaf nodes, and I'm going up to the top. These sticks were harvested dead and dormant in the wintertime. I have already scraped a stick to save us some time. So you can see that this one, you can see it's a little fuzzy. You can't see that shiny bark on there anymore. So now this is the scrape stick, and the tip was broken off. So you can see that this is that fiber that we're going to be extracting. So in order to break the fiber off of the stick, I squeeze the stick and I pinch it. It's a hollow, pithy stalk. It was only growing for 1 year. The way this plant grows is it's a perennial. It has really deep root stalks, and it grows in little clumps and in dense patches. And it grows up, and then it goes dead and dormant in the wintertime. And you go in after it's dormant and you harvest those green stalks, or those dead stalks that are no longer green. And the plant's never going to use these sticks again. It's going to send up new growth in the spring. So you're not really hurting the plant itself by taking the dead stalks And in fact, sometimes if it's growing really thick, it's nice to get rid of these dead stalks because otherwise it starts to get too thick growing. So I've cracked it into 4 ways of doing this. Whenever we're harvesting wild plants, we always have to understand how the plants grow so that we don't over harvest and so that we're promoting the patches. And I've harvested at the same patches for 20, 30 years, and they're just doing better and better because we're actually, the attention, I think they like it, and we're doing things like pulling out other invasives that are hurting them. So we're doing what we can to steward and maintain the patches as much as we can. So the stick is now broken into 4 parts. And what I do is I come in and I roll one side out, my finger in the middle, and I slide up with my thumb. And then I come back and I slide down with my other finger. And now I've rolled that fiber. It was a round stick. Let me see if I can show you here. It was a round stick, but now all of the inner side of the bark is there and all the outside of the bark is there. So I've made it into a flat plane. And then in order to extract the fiber, what I do is I just hold it under my hand. And I'm coming in to see if I can get this close up for you. And then I crack it and I break the wood and I peel it off. And all of that inner bark stays right there. The outer bark has already been scraped off, and I don't want to just pull down and pull because it's not going to do a clean extraction from the wood. So what I do is I come in like this and I pull down and I just go down 1 inch and I'm supporting with this finger right here. And then I can come in and crack the wood again and I can peel the wood away. And then I don't lose any fibers when I do that. So I do a double breaking. I come down 1 inch, I peel back. And in doing that, I can get all the fiber off in one nice clean piece. And that's why one of the reasons dogbane is so nice too, like hemp, is the stalks are really long. This is actually a fairly short stalk. They can be taller when you're standing in really good patches. They can be even taller than you are. They can be 6, 7 feet tall. And so you're getting really nice long pieces of fiber. There's a lot of things that you can get fiber out of, but you get short fibers, which means you have to do a lot of splicing, which takes a little more time. But the dogbane is nice, big, long stalks usually. And if you just do this process, which I've been doing this for over 30 years, and so I make it look pretty quick and easy, but when you're learning, it can be a little bit of a challenge. But I'm just breaking, supporting, and breaking the fiber off till I get to the end, and then I am left with this nice bundle of fiber that has been fully extracted from the stalk. So this is the tip of the stick where the fiber is skinnier. And then this is going down to the bottom of the stick where the fiber is fatter. And if I'm going to, just to make it easier, if I was going to be making a long net or a long piece of rope, behind me this is a rope. This is a net that I'm going to show you how to make. So there's a lot of sticks in this. This rope that's right here behind me hanging is 9 of strings that are about 10 feet long. So there's about there's at least 150 sticks in this rope right here. So it takes some time to process when you're making a large project like this. And when you are making a large project, you have to set things up so that the ends stagger, because a string is only as long as its weakest splice. So if you have the fiber ending all at one point and you put a bunch more fiber in, that's going to be a weak spot. It's like a chain. In a chain, the chain is only as strong as its weakest chain or its weakest link. And with string making, it's the splice that you need to do. So if you were setting up to make a larger project, you would stagger the ends and have a whole bunch of them ending at different places. But in order just to make a quick demo here, since we are on Zoom and you can't really see the splice, the staggering anyways, is I'm going to just fold it in half and make a short piece of string right now to demonstrate how I do that. But if I just folded it over, this is all the thick ends and this is the thin ends. And so my string would not be even because all of this side is thicker than this side. So in order to make a short piece of string, what I just do is I pull it apart at the middle and I turn half of it around. And I'm just lining up the ends. And now everything is nice and even. And this is where if I was making something longer, I would pull it apart again and bring a lot of these down so that it would look like a layered haircut sort of with a bunch of different ends. And that's how you would set up for a longer project. But for right now, I'm taking my fiber and I'm spinning my right hand away from me and I'm twisting my left hand towards me. And this is a binding process. So if this fiber was not strong, me twisting like this would have broken it. And so that's what tells you if you have a fiber bearing plant. If it's strong enough to twist like this, or a fiber bearing product, you can do this with pieces of plastic bags cut into long spirals too, if you want. Anything that can twist without breaking is strong enough to make string. So you can see that the energy is binding in there, and its reaction is it wants to kink. And if I don't control it, it's going to kink in 2 or 3 different places. See, that's the natural thing that happens when energy is bound. There's a whole bunch of science going on with this. And the primary thing that I do throughout the course of the year outside fair is I do a hands-on program with 6th graders, 3rd to 6th graders, and we do this in the program. And the program actually has been developed over the last 20 years or 25 years, and it was all me wanting to learn to teach children how to make pieces of string. We do a whole bunch of other stuff too, but the main thing I'm doing is teaching them how to make string, because understanding how to make string is a core, ultra important technology. And so if I'm controlling it, see, it reverses and wraps around itself and it gets caught and it does not come undone. So when I let go, it doesn't snap apart. That's because the energy, when it tries to untwist, grabs itself again, and that's called a reverse wrap twist. And that's the base of all string and all rope unless it's braided. So in order to continue this going, when I'm working with in the school, somebody holds this one and we make a little 45-degree angle, a little Y shape, and people twist this and people twist these ends. And that's what you can do with 3 people. If you're working by yourself, one thing you can do is you can do a thing called mouth twisting. So you roll this up and store the energy. Like I said, there's a ton of science in here. So if you store the energy, it turns into a spring. I'm gonna try to tilt this down so you can see this. And I have this tightly twisted, and now I twist both of these to the left and they wrap around each other. And as long as I keep, if I go like this, the energy won't flow if I make it a T, but if I keep the Y, I twist to the left, they wrap around each other and they will start to grip. And if I let this go, then it still doesn't come apart. See, I moved down there, but I ran out of the energy, so I have to restore the energy again. So I store it again, I twist it tight. That's the spring of storing the energy. And then I put the string there and I twist down, and I'm twisting both elements to my left. And so that's sort of a quick and easy way to learn string making. But this twisting motion, doing this, will, if you're doing it for any extended period, like making a rope or making a net, that will give you carpal tunnel. It'll give you repetitive motion stuff going on in your wrist and your elbow. And our ancestors all around the world figured that out a long time ago. So everybody came up with a way that's called leg rolling. And that's how people actually have been making string in any kind of quantity. And you have
And we might have lost Tamara. Bear with us 1 second here to see if we can get the internet connection reestablished. Well, we seem to have lost that connection, unfortunately, right at the climax too, right as we're making the string. So we'll see if we can get her back.
I'm back.
Oh, she's back. There she is. Awesome.
I think I got dropped yesterday at the exact same place.
Right? I was like, it's the denouement. Like, here we are.
Okay.
Let me add a spotlight to you and get myself out of here. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so I take the fiber and I hold it like this and I put it on my leg, and with a flat hand, which will not give me carpal tunnel, I roll my hand, which was doing the same thing as twisting both of my hands. And I'm keeping everything tight between my left and my right hands. And then when they're getting tightly stored, the energy, they're tightly twisted because there's a lot of energy stored, I shift my hands and I bring them together so they're tightly parallel but not crossing. And that means that they're ready to do the reverse, which means I just roll my hand backwards And when I do that, it makes several inches of cord happen. And then I have to come back and find that point. And then I make it tight again, lay it back on my leg, and I roll. And then I make the shift happen. I get them parallel, and then I roll backwards. And I see I lost they came apart. If anybody saw that on the close-up, right when I was rolling backwards. So I'm gonna redo it. Because if you have them come apart, they don't wrap around each other and store the energy. So I bring them there, I get them parallel, I keep them parallel, and then when I roll back, see, it makes the string happen. So like I said, this is how people all around the world have made string for hundreds of thousands of years. We don't know exactly how old string is because it doesn't last in the archaeological record, but a lot of people are estimating that it's probably at least 300,000 or more years ago, maybe even older. They think it's as old as making fire because they're about the same importance. So in order to keep this from unraveling, eventually as I'm using it, I'm just going to tie an overhand knot here. Brooks, I've got about maybe 10 more minutes.
Yes, you're good. You're good. You can go longer.
So this is our finished string that we just made out of the stick. And it just turned into, that's half of that one piece of stock. And this is a nice usable string for making a bracelet or, short necklace, anything like that. But the other thing that I want to show you is how you can make it into a net. So if you have a finished piece of string or a piece you've been working on, so this is the net that I was demonstrating on yesterday, and I've taken it back off the shuttle, and this one is set up so that there's a lot of new ends coming in. See, that's not all in one place. It's a lot of staggered ends. And that means that I need to splice in more fiber on this one because there's the finished cord. And then I need to splice in more fiber. And so this is fiber that I've already extracted off of the stick. And so I'm just you never want to add too much fiber at any one time. It's better to add in small amounts repeatedly more often than to add a large amount at one time. And then my favorite way, and so I'm just dividing these guys out. My favorite way to add fiber is a thing called an elbow splice. But just like since this is such a core ancient technology, that means that there's been a lot of time for a lot of people to figure out different ways of doing it. So we know that there's certain things that everybody did because it's just the way to do it. But if you're looking at string making from around the world, you're going to find out tons and tons of different methods that people have come up with. And that's where the individual cultural differences come into play. So in every region of the world and every culture, people have figured out their unique individual string making practices and patterns they create and materials they use. But the core thing of twisting and binding energy is the pandemic, the universal thing about this. And in the modern world, we have machines that do all this for us. When you go to the hardware store and you buy a ball of twine that's been twisted, it's doing this twist, but using machines. And if you go and buy a twisted rope, it is just the same thing that we're doing here, but just being done with machines. And even spinning on a wheel is a more modern technological version of spinning something. So you can do this twisting on a spinning wheel as well, or you can do it on a spindle, a drop spindle. So those were more modern ways that came into being as time passed. But the oldest way is just using your hands and doing it on your leg. So I have my splice here. My fiber that I'm going to splice, and I always want to stagger it. So I don't want to have the two ends joining up. So one is longer than the other. And then I've got my point here, and I'm going to lay my fiber in there into that junction. And I want to have it between the two pieces. And then I grab it nice and tightly. And I always want to untwist what I'm adding to. And I lay that fiber in. And then I twist it. I have to make sure I always go the same way, always away from me. This is a right hand twist. If I was going the opposite, I'd have to do the whole thing the opposite. And if there is a left hand twist, it is possible to do, but this whole string has been made on a right hand twist because I am right handed. So this is the other piece of fiber that we need to add to. So I'm pulling this one down and then I'm twisting it to the right as well. So these guys are both twisting the same direction. Remember, they're folded in half. Both of them are going that way. So if you look at it, you can hardly tell that I added fiber. And now when I go and do the twist, I can either put it right back on my leg or I can do a locking twist. So I twist the one, reverse wrap it and bring it around. And now that splice is locked in there because it's got a twist on there. So there's no chance I'll lose it when I'm doing the leg rolling. And then I have my leg again. And I hold the fiber, and between my two fingers, I put it on my leg and I roll, and I make it nice and tight. And when I get to the end, I make them parallel so that they're not wrapping around each other, but they are touching. And when I roll back, then I do a little piece of string. And then I can go here and grab it again. And I want to be careful because there was a reverse here. And if I grabbed here, it might go the wrong way now. I have to make sure I get back to the original twist. And then I can do another one, and I can add more fiber as I need to. And if I was actually adding to the string, I would sit down probably for several hours and make a bunch of string. But right now, the last thing I want to do before my time is up is I want to show you a few knots on the net that I'm making. And in order to make a knotted net, you need a thing called a shuttle. And it literally is like a shuttle, like a vehicle, like a bus. It's made to shuttle a large amount of fiber through a small opening in the net. And so this is all around the world, there's tons of different styles of shuttles, but this is a specific one that I want to tell you about. The culture that developed this one is, I live in Northern California, and excuse I dumped water all over myself because it's incredibly hot here today. So I live in Northern California, and in Mendocino County, and the native tribe that lives here are the Pomo people. And so this is a Pomo technology. It's an incredibly elegant way of splitting and seasoning oak shoots from our local oak trees and binding them so that it makes this really, really beautiful shuttle that's easy to make. A lot of other shuttles require a lot of carving, and this one is, I love it so much because it's a great project for learning how to control a knife, how to season wood, how to take green wood and split it. There's so many technologies that are involved in making this shuttle in the first place that it's really just an awesome, awesome example of incredibly elegant and simple, but super effective technology. So I looped in the fiber, and I'm just looping it back and forth, and I keep bringing it through my openings. And then I have to wrap it again, and I spiral it just slightly, just so that I can get a lot of string on, but not too much. I don't want to put any kinks in there, and I go until I get all the string that I've made. And if I had been planning on doing this, I would sit down and I would make enough string to make this where it was loaded about that thick. And then I would be able to go for a couple of days of net making, but, or at least, a whole day of net making. But right now I'm just gonna go until I get back up to the net, which is right here. And then I'm going to get behind my computer again and see if I can show you how to do this knot so that you can see it. This was what we were working on yesterday, and we had already done 2 knots. So I'm putting the other tool that you use in knotted net making is the measure. And this one is made out of, I carved this one out of manzanita wood, our local manzanita wood, but it's measuring the mesh of the net. So it's the thing that made this size be what it is. So if you put it in here, it's a quarter. I'll show you this. It's a quarter. It measures that distance from one of those squares, from in the diamond shape. It's one corner, one side of the entire diamond. So wrapping around here is half of the loop. And in order to keep going, am I in the frame here yet? Yeah, that's good. Okay, so I am holding my measure here. I bring my shuttle underneath my measure and through the top of the next loop. See, this is the next one that's coming down from the previous row. And then I come back and I do it back in front, and I'm tying 2 loops together, because what I'm actually doing is tying a sheet bend knot, it's called. So I put my finger on the place where the 2 loops are joined, and I go through like this, and I bring my shuttle back through, and then I pull it tight under the tension of my finger. And that makes that knot tie right at that place. And then I can't start here. I have to go behind the measure again. And I go back through my next loop. Then I come back down in front like this. And I put my finger on that loop, and I come from the left, go behind the 2 strings that I'm holding, and then back through the loop that I created. And all around the world, most nets are made by 2 methods, either using the sheet bend knot or using a figure-8 style knot. But there's several ways of throwing the sheet bend. So you may see somebody doing net making that looks a little different than this, either reversed or coming from behind. But as long as you do the same thing over and over by whatever method you learn and you get the knot tied effectively, it's going to work. But all around the world, people have slightly different variations on how to make this same thing happen. So I'm getting to the last 2 loops, and I want to show you how I flip it over before I say goodbye. So I'm bringing it through, and see, it's gotten a little short, so I actually have to release it off of the shuttle. And then I bring it back through the loop that I created. See, my pointer finger is holding everything tight so I don't lose things as I move around. And normally I would just pull, but I'm tied to my window shade and I don't want to pull my drape down. So I'm being a little bit careful on how much I pull. I go around the back. And then I come here, I put my finger on there, I bring my loop through. And this is what I mean. If I had it tied more securely to something, I would just pull right here and really snuggle it down. But I'm sort of grabbing it and doing this so I don't pull it off the shade. So that's my series of rows. This is a very narrow sort of hammock style net. And so it's a long, skinny net. So in order to turn it over now, I'm going to take everything out and you can see the series of loops that I just created. And then I turn it over and I just start over again from the left again. So I come here, I go through the first loop. On this one, I didn't have a loop to start with, so I'm dropping down. And now I have my 2 loops here. Coming around behind the 2 strings I'm holding. And I come back through the loop. And then I'm pulling this tight. Right at that junction. That's where I want to be tying it. And then I have to go behind, straddling the knot around the measure. And then I come back through again. And I go down. And if I was making a spiral net, I would have just kept going in a big spiral. But this is a flat style net, which is both of them are the same knot. There's just 2 different ways of doing it. And then within net making, there is a whole craft of being able to add knots, make your net bigger. It's an art form that will take, that you can spend an entire life exploring. That's one of the things I love about all these ancient technologies, is that if you feel like you're sort of getting tired of doing one thing, you can just move your focus just a few degrees to the right and you've got another lifetime of stuff to explore and try to figure out. Because these are essential skills, they're core skills. As humans, we all have the ability to do these skills. It's born in us. We actually became the humans that we are right now through our ancestors figuring out these technologies and doing these things. So it's sort of like in our genetic memory, it's there, it's inside of all of us. But like anything, you can't instantly do something really well. You need to train just like you would with a sport or with any kind of other skill. And after you've done things for a while, then you can get really good and get more efficient at doing them. And that's how our hunter-gatherer ancestors all over the world were able to live and survive and also thrive in the environments that they have been living in. And so you don't have to do these things as a core part of your regular daily life, but if you are able to incorporate them, or even if you've done something once, you really appreciate the energy that was put into a ball of string that you buy at the hardware store. You realize, the energy that was put into a rope that was made, even if it was made by machines, there was still a lot of energy embodied in there. And if you've done it with your hands, you gain a deeper appreciation and a closer connection with the earth. And that's one of the reasons when I started doing this over 30 years ago, that was what I was trying to do, was live more in balance with the earth and express myself creatively and artistically in a way that was in balance and function. I was really into functional craft. And so this is the most functional of all the crafts that I know of. And you can gather most of what you need out in the woods when you know where the materials that you need are. So that's my quick and easy demo for this afternoon. Does anybody have any questions or anything that they want to ask me?
That's what I was going to ask too. If anybody had any questions, I see in the chat, really fun and interesting to watch you do that. I had a question. I was wondering where you might find dogbane around, like in Oregon. Is it like a native plant, or like, is it?
Yeah, it's definitely around. It's everywhere in North America. It doesn't
Okay.
grow in many other parts of the world, but or any that I know of, except for where it's been domestically planted. It's more common in Eastern Oregon than it is in Western Oregon. But I have found a few patches here and there on the roadsides in just, within an hour drive of the fair. So, but I couldn't tell you exactly where they are. They were in washes and they're small, like 10 plants or something. But they do grow. And there's another kind that's a shorter one that's called spreading dogbane, and that one is a little bit more common on the East Coast, on the east and the western part. But when you get into the Great Basin out to the east, you can find really dense patches, and usually they're at springs or like in rivers, because it has to be able to get its feet into water in order to be able to make it throughout the year. So it'll be in the desert climate, tends to really thrive in desert climates, and it'll be near water basically. But if you start looking around for it and start asking people, it's something that you can contact me and I could give you more direction. But in Oregon, there are not, I'm not from Oregon, so I know a few patches here and there, but I can't give as many details, and I don't want to give any of my Oregon friends' patches away to on a public thing like this. But in Northern California, there's different ones. In Santa Rosa down here in Sonoma County, there's a patch that's under the auspices of our local land paths open space group that was saved. It was a traditional site that was going to get developed that had been a gathering site for Pomo people for 10,000 years. And so that one is now protected, and we have annual stewardship events that anybody's welcome to come to down in Santa Rosa. So that if you want to find out about that, you can go to my website at paleotechnics.com and email me, and I can give you direction on that. There's a patch in Yosemite that is only utilized by the interpretive rangers from Yosemite National Park. But if you're visiting there, you might be able to get a tour of it. And then there's other plants the ones that are more common in Western Oregon are the milkweed and nettles. And you can do what I just did with both of those. You want to be really careful with nettles. You have to wear gloves because they have the stingers, but the wood is very splintery and it can give you splinters. But otherwise it's very, very similar. And milkweed is very similar. And those you can find all over the place. And then another really common fiber for the Western Oregon is making it out of the iris leaves. So it's a hard fiber, it's a leaf fiber, and you use the outside fibers of the iris leaves. And it's a low growing ground iris that's all over Western Oregon or southwestern Oregon. And then as you go north, cedar becomes one of the big important fibers. So, you have to work within what grows in your region.
That's cool. I love that. And now that you described the shorter dogbane, I think I have seen patches of that, but I thought it was some kind of bamboo. I didn't really know what it was.
And the trick with dogbane, it's just like milkweed. It's a relative of milkweed. And so the trick with dogbane is if you break the leaf, there'll be a latex milky sap. And you do have to be careful because that latex milky sap is a digitalis-like heart stimulant. It's heavily medicinal and heavily active on your body. And that's why I usually wait till it's dead and dormant and process everything dead and dormant. You never want to be working with dogbane in the green state. This is it right here. So this is my little potted plant of it. And so it's got a milky sap. When you break the leaf, there's a white milky sap that comes out. And on my website, there's a little photo essay of the dogbane if you look at the photo section. And then it's a red stalk. But in the fall, when it's getting close to going dormant, these leaves will turn bright yellow, and that's usually where you find a patch. Is you'll see that deep red bark, like counterposed against the bright yellow leaf, and you'll see it as you're driving by, and you'll be like, "Oh, that's a dogbane patch." And usually you don't see it the rest of the year, but that's when you can find them. And then you wait for it to go dead and dormant before you harvest it.
Okay.
Like I said, for that risk of if you do harvest it in the green state, make sure you totally wash your hands. Don't touch your hands to your mouth. It is a really, really powerful. The latex is a very powerful medicinal.
So I also from the comments, I must point out there's a cart coming through, so please get out the way for that. And we one other quick, can you cultivate it in a like in your permaculture garden, let's say? Is that something?
You totally can, but one of the things about it is it runs like bamboo. So it will follow the water, and once it gets in there, you will never get rid of it.
Got it.
As long as there's water there, any broken root will grow new ones. I planted a few 20 years ago and they're thriving, but there's nothing else, you can't grow anything else there anymore. So I do warn people that if you are going to put it in a permaculture garden, make sure that it's got its own water supply and it's not competing with anything else. And also you don't want it where livestock could eat it because it is toxic to them. And then you also just be aware that you want to contain it like you would a patch of bamboo. You have to treat it very much like bamboo because as long as it gets water, it will keep growing and spreading, which is what we want. And that's one of the problems is it tends to grow in vernal pool areas, which are becoming fewer and far between. And that's one of the reasons why it's sort of endangered and it's considered to be a noxious weed at the same time as it is lessening in number. And so I do encourage people to start patches. If you know of a place on a creek that you could grow it, anywhere where it can keep its feet in water year round, you can try to grow it, but not where animals will be grazing, sheep and goats, and not in your garden where you might lose control of it and have it take over.
Awesome. Thanks for that advice. And I'm not seeing any other questions. Thank you for being back today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me. I've enjoyed it.
And I plan to find you in Art Park next year. I invite our audience. We've had quite a few people watching on the stream and people in Zoom here today. So I'll find you for sure. And I encourage others to do the same.
Yeah, we're on the Upper River Loop, and it's a great place. And if you're there, some people spend the whole fair with us. And, because there's workshops going on, there's demonstrations, there's a whole bookstore. There's just tons and tons of stuff going on. We're a nice Upper River area where it's not super crowded with people. So come and visit us. We're right next to the Daredevil Pavilion on the back side of the Daredevil stage in the Upper River Loop.
And it's my favorite view of the Longtom River too.
Yes. Oh yeah, we're right on the river. Yeah. we get to camp right there. It's great.
Oh, so, nice. Yeah. Well, thank you, Tamara. Happy fair. Enjoy the rest of the weekend.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Happy fair to everybody.
And now we're going to bring in Jeff, I think. Are you there, Jeff? Aging Jeff Eichen.
Jeff Eichen at the helm. Jeffy Fresh, the man with the plan.
Hello. This concludes Zoom. So we don't have any more live workshops, but we do have plenty of great content coming soon. We've got next up, the Shelton McMurphy Johnson House is going to do a talk called Community Conversations, and it's part of their series, The Work Still to Be Done. And it's really cool. I mean, I've toured the museum. It's an awesome place. They believe the best way to learn is to listen. So they wanted us to join them in learning from community members as they share their experiences living in the Eugene Springfield area. And the video is produced by Rochelle Satke Safardi of Envisage Productions. And then after that, I think we've got OCF Land, this would dovetail really nicely with what Tamara was just talking about. It comes from members of our Art Park. And it's going to look at the history of the land, I believe back to 10,000 years or so, and what kind of has gone on at the site, including up to the present, I would imagine. So definitely I'm looking forward to watching that.
I bet we used to grow hemp on that land.
That would have surprised me at all. I know there were peaches.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a wonderful day for a picnic. Well, thank you, Brooks, for all you did today and yesterday. And we look forward to a beautiful day tomorrow. I'm going to have a morning legacy with Paul Magid. He's a Karamazov brother.
Also looking forward to that. Fair famous.
That's going to be so fun. And it's been fun. Spoon Man came to my yard sale today. He lives here in town, and he's not going to be on live, but I wanted to share that I saw a Spoon Man today. It was like being at the fair, and you just bumped into freaking Spoon Man.
I love it.
So he came over today, and that was great. I made a honey today, a Benjamin, and plus a little more today at my yard sale. Got rid of some big stuff. So everybody, do a yard sale. Put it in the paper and get rid of downsize and get ready to stay hydrated this summer. I know it's really hot. Water everything around your house, so in case there's smoky fires and all that stuff. It's such a bummer, but I'm so blessed to be helping you support this. We put out some fires ourselves with the Sean hose and with your hose, and so let's get hosed, everybody, in the heat and spray the children. It's so.
And check your gutters. Check your gutters too. Like, keep those clean, because if there is fire, you don't want a spark catching your house on fire.
Yeah, totally. So it's maintenance time, everybody. Self-care, maintenance. Eat your reishi and chaga, drink it, and take care of each other. Give and get foot rubs, everybody.
Right? Everyone's on fire crew.
Yeah, foot rubs for fire crew. We walk on our feet. We walk on our feet so long, and nobody remembers their feet. That we don't really get foot rubs. Reflexology is very important on the hands too.
Yeah.
So
Cool.
I'm gonna I'm going to roll now. We're going to go out of Zoom, everybody, and we're going to have the community. I can
Conversations.
Conversations, yes, community conversations, and I'm going to start that in just a second. See you later, Zoom.
All right. Bye, y'all.